Welcome to Revenge Report. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more. Let's dive in. The second the banquet hall doors slammed open, I knew something was wrong. Forks froze mid-air, steel-toed boots shuffled on tile, and all that noise from the Union Gala just stopped. The city inspector was covered in concrete dust, still in his reflective vest. Eyes wide, voice hoarse. "Foreman Jacobs!" he shouted. "We need you, right now." Every head turned. Conversations died. Someone dropped a fork. I stood up, almost knocking over my chair. My mom's hand gripped my arm, but she didn't stop me. Across the room, the table of old ironworkers shifted, chairs creaking as men stood one by one. All but one. My father didn't move. Mitch Jacobs, 40 years union, retired legend, the man with the biggest voice in every room. He just sat there, napkin on his lap, drink in hand, face still. I looked right at him, waiting, hoping maybe. Nothing. I hadn't expected much, but damn. Even then, that still cut deep. Quick note. Before listening, share which city or country you're watching from. If you're wondering why it hit that hard, it started long before that night. That moment didn't come out of nowhere. It started years ago, the first time I saw him smirk. It was back when I thought that vest meant something. It was one of those Saturday Union appreciation picnics, tents up in Calumet Park, bratwurst smoke hanging in the air, old-timers playing bags while their grandkids ran circles around the beer coolers. I was 22, fresh into the apprenticeship, and I showed up proud. Hard hat in hand, vest zipped to the top, ID badge clipped to my collar. My boots weren't clean. I made sure of that. I'd just come off the South Shore site, still had dirt under my nails. I wasn't pretending. I was building. "Hey, Jacobs," someone called as I walked up the gravel path toward the food tent. And there he was, Mitch, my dad, front and center with his crew, posted up near the grill like he owned the place. Steel gray hair slicked back, work shirt tucked in like it always had been, even in retirement. He was holding court as usual. Guys around him laughing too loud, sipping cheap beer from solo cups. When he saw me, I thought, maybe this time. I gave a little wave, just enough to say hey, but not make a thing of it. He squinted at me, smirked, and turned to the guy next to him. "That vest's just for show," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Real work's for men." Laughter, not all of it real. Some of those guys looked at me, then at him, then back down at their plates. But no one called him out. You don't correct Mitch Jacobs. You just nod along and keep chewing. I felt the heat shoot straight to my face, that kind of sting behind the eyes that tells you it's not the first time. I locked my jaw, gave a quick nod, and kept walking past like I didn't care. Like it didn't touch me. But it did. It always did. I didn't stop to argue. That wasn't how it worked with him. The louder he got, the quieter I got. That was the rule growing up. Don't embarrass Mitch in front of his people. That was worse than slamming a door in his face, worse than screaming. So I found a table with the drywall guys and sat down, ate my brat in silence, fought back every word I wanted to yell. Because the truth was, that smirk, that same damn one, I'd seen it my whole life. I was maybe 7 the first time I caught it, when I helped my brother carry a toolbox across the backyard, and he told me to drop it before I pulled something. Then he gave that look, that sideways smirk, like I'd just put on a firefighter's helmet and called myself a hero. Back then, I didn't have the words for it, but now I do. It was dismissal. That look that said, "You don't belong in this world, kid." It just kept showing up. Every time I grabbed a hammer or asked what something did or said I wanted to help on a project, he'd brush it off like it was cute, or worse, like it was a joke. By 10, I stopped asking, started watching instead. I'd sit in the garage while he sharpened blades or cleaned his level. I'd steal scrap pieces of wood when he wasn't looking and draw buildings on them with a Sharpie. Sketch out things I didn't have words for yet. Arches and beams, staircases and cranes. I once left one on his workbench, hoping maybe he'd notice. He never said a word. That summer, my older brother got to go help frame out a deck with one of Dad's buddies. I asked if I could go too. Mitch looked me up and down and said, "Unless that hammer swings itself, no." That smirk again. It followed me into my teens, into that job at the hardware store, where I learned tools by their weight and name, where I memorized aisle numbers, like scripture. I'd come home covered in dust, and he'd just grunt from his recliner without even turning the volume down on the TV. So when he laughed at me that day in Calumet Park, I didn't flinch, not on the outside. I just swallowed it, let it sink deep, Same place all the other ones had gone. But something cracked inside that afternoon. Not big, not loud, just a shift. I stopped trying to make him see me. And I started working like hell to make sure one day he'd have no choice. That shift I felt, it started way earlier. You don't wake up bitter. You get built that way, one nail at a time. We lived in a faded brick two-flat near Midway, right off Cicero. Jets overhead, sirens in the distance, a busted screen door that slammed no matter how careful you tried to close it. Inside, Mitch ruled like it was his job. Feet on the floor by 6, chores done by 8. No sleeping in, no talking back, and definitely no crying. My brothers were handed tools before they hit double digits. I was handed a basket of laundry and told not to wrinkle anything. They got to drill things into the garage wall. I got to fetch beers from the fridge and watch. I remember one winter, my younger brother stripped a screw on the snowblower. Dad just said, "You'll get it next time, buddy," and walked him through it. When I asked if I could try, he looked at me like I was asking to drive the damn thing. "You got homework or something?" he said. "Let your brother work." It was like that every time. At 10 years old, I stood on the curb downtown, clutching a warm Gatorade and sweating through my Cubs tee. Labor Day parade. Mitch came marching down the avenue in full gear, harness on, gloves tucked into his belt, union pin on his chest. Kids clapped. Some dads slapped hands with him. I swear I saw a few moms wink. I turned to my mom and whispered, "I'm going to build something one day." He must have heard me. Without breaking stride, without even looking, he said, "Leave the building to builders." Like it was a reflex. That one stuck. It didn't make me cry. It made me quiet. From then on, I started drawing buildings when no one was around. On the backs of school worksheets, on cardboard scraps in the basement, sometimes even on the fogged-up bathroom mirror. I'd sketch fire escapes, beams, cranes, stuff I didn't fully understand yet, but it felt right. It felt mine. Mitch found one once, a messy sketch of a parking garage I thought up, and tossed it on the counter like it was a receipt. Said nothing. Left a beer can on top of it. So I stopped leaving them out. When I turned 13, I begged my mom to let me work somewhere that didn't involve folding towels. She got me a summer job at a True Value 3 blocks away. I stocked bolts, cut rope, cleaned spills, and learned more from those aisles than I ever did in school. I started recognizing tools by the sound they made when they hit the counter. I liked the smell of the place. Oil, sawdust, metal. No judgment. Back home, none of that mattered. Mitch never asked how work was. Never mentioned it once. But he'd hear my brothers talk about sports or some project they half finished in the backyard, and suddenly it was a bonding session. I remember one night at dinner, I said I fixed a wobbly shelf at the store. He didn't even look up, just mumbled, "Yeah, okay," and passed the mashed potatoes. That's how love worked in that house. You didn't hear it, you didn't feel it, you earned it. If Mitch made fun of you, it meant you were still worth the effort. If he ignored you, you were nothing. So I figured if I wasn't going to be heard, I'd get good. Really good. I started setting my alarm for 5:30. Did my homework early so I could draw at night, took extra shifts at the hardware store. I didn't tell anyone what I was planning, but I was already building something in my head, and one day I was going to step onto a job site and not feel like an intruder. That meant I had to stop waiting for a nod from him. It was never coming. So I got good. Good enough to get into the apprenticeship program right after high school. It wasn't handed to me. I applied twice, got rejected the first time, then spent a year taking night classes in blueprint reading and construction math just to earn a second shot. When I got in, Mitch said nothing. Not "good job," not "what crew you pulling," not even "don't screw it up." He just kept chewing his dinner like I told him I bought new socks. My first site was off 63rd and Ashland. It was February, wind slicing through every layer I owned, scaffolding iced over like a damn skating rink. I showed up with my hard hat pulled tight and boots that still squeaked on concrete. I could feel eyes on me from the minute I clocked in. Men twice my age, thick, calloused hands, faded Carhartt jackets that had seen more winters than I had birthdays. Cleanup crew. That's what I got. Stack scrap, sweep corners, haul busted 2x4s to the dumpster, and don't get in the way. Standard rookie treatment, but I could tell the guys weren't just testing me. They were waiting for me to quit. One of them, grizzled guy with a Packers beanie and a permanent scout, muttered just loud enough, "Bet Daddy got her in." I didn't flinch, just picked up another board, threw it in the pile, and kept moving. But that line stuck with me the whole day. Every time someone looked past me or talked over me, I heard it again. "Bet Daddy got her in." By lunch, I was soaked through and pissed off. Didn't talk to anyone, just sat on an overturned bucket, eating a soggy sandwich, watching the crane inch a steel beam into place like it was threading a needle. My fingers ached, my thighs were stiff from the cold, and my boots, still too clean. But I stayed late. Long after the crew cleared out, I was still on the ground floor, checking off delivery numbers on the rebar stacks. Nobody asked me to, but I'd heard the site foreman mention a mismatch earlier, and I wanted to know how bad it was. I grabbed a tape, logged measurements, triple-checked the counts. That's when Torres saw me. He was one of the senior crew chiefs, mid-50s, heavy-set, quiet, but always watching. I didn't even hear him come up. He stood there for a minute while I knelt in the gravel with my clipboard and a Sharpie, counting bent rods by flashlight. He didn't say anything right away. Then he grunted. "Jacobs." The way he said it caught me off guard. Flat, matter of fact. No sarcasm, no tone, just my name. I stood up. "Sir, you logged these yet?" "Almost done." He gave one nod, just one, then walked off. Didn't seem like much, but that night, walking home with stiff legs and windburn on my cheeks, I replayed it over and over. Not Miss Jacobs, not Jacobs Jr., not the girl, just Jacobs. From him? That meant something. After that, Torres started asking me to double-check orders before anyone else. Showed me how to eyeball crooked welds. Let me shadow when the surveyor came out. He never praised me, not his style, but he stopped questioning me. He watched my work, trusted my numbers. That was all I needed. And the others? They followed his lead. Not all at once, but slowly. Fewer stares. More head nods in the morning. One guy even offered to trade gloves after mine ripped. I didn't say much. I just kept showing up. I measured everything twice. I never took a shortcut. I never leaned on my last name. Not once. Hell, I hated that name on site. But hearing Torres say it the way he did, like it belonged, that stayed with me. Every time I walked off that scaffold covered in dust and sore in places I didn't know I had, I thought, this is where I'm supposed to be, not watching from the house, not fetching beers, right here, in the work. The wind off Lake Michigan could tear your skin off some mornings, but I didn't miss a single day on that lakefront job. Not one. 18 months straight, 5 crews rotating through, 0 injuries, not a single delay. Concrete passed every test. Inspections came back clean. That project was solid from the first stake to the last weld. When the superintendent pulled me aside on the final walkthrough and said, "We want you as foreman on the Monroe Tower project," I didn't even blink. I just said, "When do I start?" I was 27, the youngest on the list, only woman. Didn't matter. I had the record to back it up. My mom sent flowers to the trailer my first day on site. Blue hydrangeas with a little note that said, "Proud of you, always." I stuck the card in my toolbox and tossed the flowers in a water jug. The guys teased me, but I didn't care. I earned those damn flowers. Mitch? He didn't call, didn't text, nothing. So I brought it up at dinner the following Sunday, like ripping off a Band-Aid. My parents still lived in the same 2-flat, same peeling porch rail, same stiff kitchen chairs. We ate baked chicken and green beans, and halfway through the meal, I said, calm as ever, "They made me foreman." He didn't look up. "Foreman of what?" he asked, already halfway through his second beer. "Monroe Tower, 47 stories." He grunted. "Hope you brought your own hammer. Respect won't be handed." My fork paused midair. I didn't fire back. I didn't need to. I just said, "I schedule crews, inspect welds, approve cranes. That's not paper." He took another bite like I hadn't said a word. A few minutes later, he turned to my brothers, both of them halfway through their plates, and said, "She pushes paper now. Doesn't even carry a tool belt." Like I wasn't sitting right there. I stared down at my plate. Not because I was hurt. I'd passed that stage years ago. It was because I wanted to say something mean. Real mean. And I knew if I did, my mom would flinch and the whole night would go to hell. So I kept my voice steady and finished my food. Didn't even glance up when he cracked another beer. The silence that settled in after was thick. Not dramatic, not loud. Just final. The kind that fills up the room like water in your boots, heavy, cold, and impossible to ignore. When I stood to leave, my mom followed me to the door, wrapped me in a hug, and whispered, "He's just proud in his own way." I didn't have the energy to pretend I believed that anymore. I got in my truck, drove back to my apartment in Bridgeport, and sat in the parking lot for 10 minutes before going in, not crying, not angry, just empty. That night, I stared at the job board on my fridge, crews I'd scheduled for the next week, weld inspections I had flagged, crane delivery windows color-coded by zone. That wasn't paper, that was leadership. But I knew Mitch would never see it that way. Not unless I was the one holding the torch, balancing on rebar 40 stories up, swinging steel like he used to. He didn't understand how the job had changed. Or maybe he did, and just didn't want to admit that I'd changed with it. Either way, I knew what I was walking into with this role. So I ironed my shirt, packed my gear, set my alarm for 4:30. And when the sun rose the next day, I showed up to that skyscraper site like I always had, ready to work. 3 years in, I was running the River North project. 41 stories, concrete core, tight deadlines. It was all cranes and chaos, and I was right in the middle of it. Every weld, every lift, every bolt in that damn tower went through me. It was a Tuesday. Cold, sharp wind ripping between buildings. Traffic below jammed up like always. I was up on scaffold level 25, checking final alignment before the hoist when the first radio call hit. Main boom's hesitating. Something's not catching. Then I heard it. The steel load, 4 tons of formwork, swung out with a groan that punched through the wind. Everyone turned at once. The cables went tight, the rig tipped, and the load drifted out over Clark Street. Rush hour, cars everywhere, pedestrians. I could see a school bus 3 blocks down, crawling into the intersection. Kill comms, I snapped into my mic. Only site ops on channel. Torres, lock zone 3. I want flaggers rerouted east, now. The scaffold shifted under my boots as the wind kicked harder. I crouched low, one hand gripping a cold steel beam, eyes locked on that load swinging like a wrecking ball with a broken leash. Guys below were shouting, scattering. 2 of the younger welders froze completely, deer in headlights style, halfway between brace platforms. Move, I shouted down. Secure your anchors and move your ass to the core stair, now. One didn't budge. I climbed down 3 levels in under a minute, gear clanging off steel, breath burning my throat. I got in his face. You freeze again. Someone dies. You hear me? He nodded, pale as drywall dust, then finally moved. Back on the comms, I called for ballast checks. The engineers were scrambling on the ground, yelling about a software glitch in the load monitor. We didn't have time for that. We had seconds. Reroute lift path east, anchor swing line to crane tail, burn tension manually if needed, I barked. This thing drops. We're burying families. The site went silent for a beat. That kind of silence that cuts through noise. Everyone was waiting for me to call it wrong. I didn't. Torres came in over the radio. We've got it leaning south. Anchoring now. Load stabilizing. I exhaled just once. Then I climbed the scaffold again to verify it with my own eyes. You don't trust just words when lives are on the line. 10 minutes later, the swing was rebalanced and anchored. The load was lowered. Slow, steady, no drama. Street below cleared. No injuries, no damage. When the fire inspectors arrived, one of them walked the perimeter with me, jaw tight, clipboard in hand. At the end, he stopped and said, "That was a textbook save." I nodded. Didn't smile. Didn't need to. It didn't make the news. I didn't expect it to. Nothing dramatic happened, because I didn't let it. Later that night, I sat on the edge of the trailer steps, hands shaking from adrenaline that finally had somewhere to go. I looked down at my palms, cracked skin, grime in the lines, knuckles raw from cold steel. No one clapped, no one gave out trophies, but the site was still standing, and people went home. I showered at the trailer, changed into dry clothes, and stared at my phone for a while. No calls, no texts, not from Mitch. And honestly, I didn't expect one. That man didn't lift a finger for anything he didn't swing or weld himself. I could have caught the damn crane with my bare hands, and he still would have said, should have tied it better. So I tossed my phone in my bag, pulled on my hoodie, and stepped back outside. Because I had a crew coming at 6, and this job wasn't going to run itself. That same week, we had the annual union gala on the south side. Banquet hall off 87th, same one they always rented out. Round tables packed in tight plastic name tags, bad roast beef, cash bar. I showed up with my mom, pressed shirt, polished boots, hair pulled back clean. I wasn't there to impress anyone, but I didn't come sloppy either. The second we stepped inside, I saw him. Mitch Jacobs, head table, dead center, surrounded by old-timers like he was still on payroll. Beer in hand, voice carrying across the room like always. Same posture, same smirk. People glanced over when I walked in, noticed, whispered. That's her, right? She's the River North foreman. No shit? I nodded to a few guys I'd worked with over the years. Got a couple nods back. Some looks that said respect, some that still held the old doubts. Then I passed the head table. Mitch turned to the guy next to him, some retired welder I didn't know, and said, "Still just a mascot." He didn't whisper it, didn't need to. He knew I heard. The room caught it too. A few faces twitched. One guy stared straight down at his roll, probably hoping the moment would pass. I didn't stop walking, didn't blink, just kept moving toward our table near the back, hands still resting lightly on my mom's arm. We sat down. Waitress brought salad. I ate it. Quiet, small bites. Didn't even touch the water. That comment, it didn't shock me. It just settled in, heavy, familiar, like a dull pressure behind my ribs I'd carried for years. He could have said nothing. But no, he needed that shot. Had to remind the room I still wasn't real in his eyes. Didn't matter how many crews I ran or how many cranes I kept from falling. To Mitch, I was still playing dress up. I let the words hang. Didn't explain, didn't defend. I didn't owe the room anything. A few seats down, someone cleared their throat, trying to change the subject. The lights dimmed for the awards. And then, the floor shook. Not violently, just a low tremor, like something big rolled past outside. A few people looked up. My mom's hand stopped mid-reach for her purse. Somebody said, "What the hell was that?" A woman behind me said, "Is that a helicopter?" But then the doors slammed open, same way they did years ago when that inspector called my name. A man rushed in, vest half-zipped, face gray with dust, badge swinging around his neck. "Foreman Jacobs," he called out, voice sharp. "From River North. She here?" The whole room turned. Forks froze, drinks lowered. I stood. Instinct. Fast. Head on a swivel. Eyes scanning. I was already halfway to him when he spotted me. That tension, thick as concrete, filled the air. Then I heard chairs creaking. One by one, men stood, boots scraping tile. All eyes on me, except his. Mitch Jacobs stayed seated. The inspector locked eyes with me, breathing heavy through dust-caked lips. "Foreman Jacobs, you're needed. It's the South Loop site. Cranes hung and unstable." Every chair scraped. Every conversation died. I stood straighter, didn't ask questions, didn't flinch, just nodded once. The room shifted. Not fast. Slow, stunned. One by one, guys started rising from their seats. Hard hats on their tables, lines on their faces. Men who hadn't stood for anyone in years. Rising for me. All except Mitch. He stayed still. Fork frozen over his plate. Elbows locked tight. Like the air around him had thickened and he couldn't push through it. I didn't give him a second glance. I walked past his chair, eyes forward. Boots hitting that cheap banquet carpet like it was job site gravel. Straight toward the doors. Toward the call. Like I always did. Someone asked, voice low and shaking. "What happened?" The inspector didn't stop moving. Crane collapse. Rigs jam mid-swing. Only person who understands the schematics is her. That landed hard. There it was. Truth in the open. No excuse, no sarcasm. Just fact. My mom stood behind me, clutched her purse like it was the only thing holding her steady. She didn't cry, didn't ask questions. She just said, "Go." The crowd shifted, opening up like a tide parting. I walked straight through it. Someone clapped a hand on my shoulder, heavy, calloused, an old-timer I barely knew. "Get it done, Jacobs." I nodded, kept walking. No more whispers, no more muttering, just boots stepping aside and eyes locked on me. Mitch didn't say a word. I didn't stop. I pushed through the exit, cold night air hitting my face like a slap. Sirens in the distance. Somewhere in the city, steel was hanging wrong. Lines were under strain, and people were waiting for a call I hadn't made yet. The inspector jogged beside me as we headed for his pickup. "I told them you'd come," he said. They didn't argue. I climbed in without a word. Inside the hall, I knew Mitch was still sitting, probably gripping his glass like it might shatter, watching me walk away with his name in my back pocket, but none of his voice in my ears. Good. He'd called me a mascot an hour ago. Now they were clearing paths. That shift? It didn't happen overnight. It happened because I held the line every single damn time it counted. Even when no one clapped, even when the job nearly broke me. And now, I wasn't asking anymore. I was being called. By name. We hit Lower Wabash at 8:42 p.m., flatbeds blocking intersections, yellow tape flapping in the wind, flashing reds and blues lighting up concrete walls, and the crane? It was frozen mid-hoist. Bucket loads stalled over live train tracks. A tangle of rigging swinging like a drunk pendulum. The inspector parked half up on the curb and pointed. Your crew chief's waiting by the mobile trailer. He's panicking. Good. He should be. I slammed the door, walked into chaos, and someone shoved a clipboard into my hands before I even cleared the fence line. We've got 6 hours to clear this or the city fines us $500,000, a project manager said, voice way too shaky for my liking. No one knows how the swing locked up. Counterweights are still holding. I looked once at the crane, then down at the schematic. I knew it cold. Get that operator out of the cab and to the trailer, I said. He's done for the night. But now. I moved fast, voice sharp, eyes scanning every cable, every tie down, every dumbass standing in the wrong place. Somebody call Torres. I want him leading west anchor checks. I want east side riggers off the tracks in 10 minutes. We're going into a rollback lift. Load path rerouted southeast. One guy looked up from his radio. We don't have southeast clearance. We do now, I said. Pull last week's rigging memo. It's in the addendum. Page 4. I wrote it myself. He ran. Radio traffic popped off like gunfire, commands flying back and forth, weight shift reports, hook tension calls, street crew alerts. Everyone talking fast, everyone listening faster. Because I didn't sound unsure, and they needed that. I climbed halfway up the scaffold for a visual. Wind kicked up hard between the towers, colder now, sharper. The bucket was twisted 20 degrees too far, and if the brace cable snapped, it dropped straight through the CTA tunnel ceiling. Jacobs, this is North Tower team, the radio crackled. Should we rehook for lateral swing? No, I said immediately. Keep it on vertical hold. Anyone moves that tail boom and we're burying 2 miles of rail. A young welder a few feet away blinked at me, wide-eyed. I caught his lips move. She's the real deal. Damn right I was. I got down and started walking the line. Radios buzzing in my ears, boots crunching gravel and ice. By midnight, we'd drained the hydraulic pressure, reset the load angle, and pulled the rig into neutral hold. Torres joined me near the control trailer. Crane master's still shaking. He's off the lift list, I said. We didn't argue. I flagged 4 crew rotations over the next 3 hours. No one questioned the plan. No one stalled. We followed the schematic I designed weeks ago. The one no one wanted to sit through in the planning meeting because we'd never use it. Yeah? Well, we were using it now. By 4:17 a.m., the site was back under control. Load lowered. Traffic rerouted, transit notified. No fines, no injuries, no deaths. I sat down hard on the trailer steps, heart still hammering in my chest. Cold seeped into my bones. Sweat freezing on my back. My hands smelled like diesel and steel. My knees ached from climbing too fast, too long. Torres stood beside me. You just saved half the loop. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. My phone buzzed in my pocket. One text from my mom. No words, just a photo. The gala hall taken from behind her chair. Everyone was standing, facing the doors, men with their hands clutched in front of them, napkins dropped, forks abandoned, everyone on their feet, except one, front and center, head table. Mitch Jacobs, seated, his hands still wrapped around his glass, knuckles white, shoulders tense, face locked in something halfway between denial and disbelief. He hadn't stood, not even then. I stared at the photo for a long time. Didn't forward it, didn't reply. Just closed the screen, slid the phone into my chest pocket, and leaned back against the trailer wall. The wind howled around the half-lit skeleton of the tower we were building. And I knew damn well I'd held the line. A few weeks after the South Loop lift, I pulled up to the old 2-flat on a Sunday evening. Wind chimes knocked against the porch rail. My dad was already outside, elbows on his knees, Red Wing boots flat on the steps, staring out like he was waiting for a sign that never came. He didn't look at me when I climbed the stairs, just gave a small nod. I sat beside him, not too close, not cold either, just enough. The silence between us had weight, but it wasn't bitter, not anymore, just real. He cleared his throat, still facing the quiet street. I was wrong, he said. No warm-up, no story, just that. I didn't answer. Didn't need to. He reached inside his jacket and pulled out a plain white envelope, held it out without looking. I took it, slid the flap open. Inside was a crinkled, yellowed sheet of paper, graphite lines faint but familiar. My old sketch. The tower I drew at 14, the one with the glass stairwells and double-deck cranes. The one I left on his workbench all those years ago, thinking maybe he'd say something. I found it in the garage, he said, behind the breaker box. I stared at it for a second longer, then folded it carefully and tucked it into my coat pocket. Thought you'd want it back, he added. I do. We didn't say much after that, just sat there while the sky shifted from gold to gray, and the porch light flicked on with a tired hum, the kind of quiet that didn't need to be filled. A kid rode by on a bike, tires clicking over the sidewalk cracks. My dad leaned back, hands on his knees, and let out a long breath. Then he said, "Keep doing what you do, Foreman." I looked straight ahead, let the words land. Then I said, "That's the plan." And we stayed there, two boots on the porch, watching the street go still.